here's to a lot of talking. It has been a while, but I am happy to be bringing you another video to kind of fill you in on what my summer looked like last year in a little more depth and give you a tour of my latest van. So if you haven't seen it yet, I made a video in late May kind of explaining how I was feeling about van life at the time and what I felt like I wanted to do with the rest of 2021. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out and know what I'm talking about. If you've watched the video, you know that I was heading back to Wisconsin to take a break from being on the road for a little while. And I ended up having a very busy but eventful and fun summer. So the first thing that I did when I got back is I got my gray van ready to sell. And within about 3 weeks, I had it gone. It was so quick to sell. I had a lot of interest in it and went quickly. As you probably know, there's a lot of people that are kind of jumping on this van life trend these days, and a lot of people are willing to spend a good amount of money on a nice van so they can start traveling right away and don't have to build their own. So I've kind of noticed that need in the market, and I decided to go ahead and buy a second van and build it and resell it right away. I also made a van tour video of that van, and I'll leave that in the description below if you want to check that van out. That van, I decided to build a duplicate of van number 1, and it was much easier the second time. I was able to document a lot of the layout before I sold van number 1 and had it basically in a notebook. I made like a list of everything I had to buy. And I decided to set a goal for myself to build this van number 2 in 30 days. And I felt like that was ambitious, but I felt like I could do it and just wanted to give myself a challenge and something to try and reach for. So I started that van in mid-July and I ended up completing it in 29 days. Now, that was a lot of work within that 29 days, more than an average person works, but that's why I went back. I wanted to hustle, I wanted to work hard, and accomplish something big. So I built that van in 29 days, took a short trip down to Tennessee and Virginia and North Carolina just to kind of break it in for about 10 days, and then listed it up for sale. And within about 4 weeks, I had a buyer for it. Before my buyer actually came for van number 2, I decided to buy van number 3. So I just felt like I still wanted a van for myself, especially to be able to get out of Wisconsin before the winter hit. And since I've been able to make some money on these vans, I felt like it would be another good investment, whether I sell it in 6 months or a year or 2 years. I don't really know how long I'll keep this van number 3 yet, but either way, I think it's a good investment. I started van number 3 in early to mid-September and didn't really set a goal for myself on like when to finish it, but I wanted to do it before it got too cold. So it took me about 2 months and I was pretty much done with it mid to end of November. I had a few little things to work on. This van is much different than the first 2 vans because it's much larger, so I had a lot more space to work with and wanted to do a new design in here. I'm excited to show you van number 3. Alright, so the new van is a 2020 Ford Transit tall roof extended version. So basically the biggest body size that they make. I bought the van used with about 16,000 miles from a company that fulfilled orders for Amazon. Now, I know those Amazon drivers tend to drive a little crazy sometimes, so I was definitely a little hesitant to buy a van that was a delivery vehicle, but for only having 16,000 miles, and I was able to negotiate on the price a little bit because it does have a couple of dings and scratches on the outside. Nothing major, but it helped me to get the price down a good amount, I feel like, from what it is actually worth, especially fixed up. So that gives me a little wiggle room to repair some dents if I feel I want to do that someday, and gave me a really nice vehicle to build in. A little more information about the van. The 2020 version of the Transit is a new updated version of the Transit, so I really appreciate that Ford has, it seems like, invested into a lot of thought and definitely has some upgrades from the previous model years. A few to say are it has lane assist, it has automatic wipers, automatic brights, drive modes, a few other features which are just nice, and I just feel like it's just much more thought through than the previous vans. This van just has the base 3.5 liter engine, and it is paired with the new Ford 10-speed transmission, and I feel like the combo of those two definitely was a great upgrade from the 6-speed that they had in before. It really does a whole lot better on the highway at high speeds. In the previous vans, I put a curtain rod across the little foam brackets that are in the van, and this van I actually decided to install a track system for the curtain, and I've been really happy with this because it allows the curtain to get up really close to the dashboard, so that if I have the swivel seats spun around, you can still have the curtain behind you and have that privacy. Starting with a build on the driver's side, you'll see that I did a breakfast bar kind of layout over here. My brother actually gave me this idea, and great idea, thank you, bro. I've seen a lot of times people do more like a booth seating where you sit across from each other, which is also good, but I like to try and do things that I don't see super commonly. So I thought it would be cool to try and do a breakfast bar with a window so you can kind of look out at whatever you park next to. The countertop is a piece of white pine, and it's really got some neat features with a couple of knots and a lot of cool grain within it, so it makes it very colorful piece of wood. You'll see at the front of the breakfast bar I had to do a little fold up on the corner in order for the driver's seat to be able to slide all the way back, so kind of a funny quirk, but I felt like if I removed it completely, your arm would not have a spot to go on that end, so that's why I decided to hinge that little corner piece. Down below I have a couple of compartments for shoe storage or really whatever. I just imagine putting shoes in these areas. In the center, I actually mounted a safe down to the bottom of the van, and it's also built into the cabinets. So it's pretty secure. It would take quite a bit of demolition and grinding of bolts to remove the safe. So really nice to have a little bit of extra security for certain items in the van. Above the countertop, you'll notice 4 cabinets, plenty of nice storage. I keep most of my camera gear and some miscellaneous items in there. And to the right of that, you'll notice a little bookshelf. It's not a whole lot of storage, but it's nice to be able to throw a few things up there. Then you'll notice I have an outlet, a direct 12-volt charging station, a remote for the MaxxAir fan, and just the dimmer switch for the lights above the breakfast bar. Moving back, I have 2 tall, skinny pantry cabinets that pull out on drawer slides. I really like this style of cabinets. It doesn't take up very much space width-wise, but you can really fit a lot of stuff because it goes from the floor to the ceiling, basically. Moving back once again, this is the shower/toilet area. So I saw a couple people with designs that were somewhat similar to this, and I really like the concept of it. I didn't really want to allocate a ton of space in the van for a shower, just because personally I feel like I wouldn't need it all that often because I'm also using gyms or showers at the beach or whatever, but it is really nice to have an area inside that you can shower. So I like this concept because it's a usable counter space. It's an area where the toilet can go, and it converts very easily. So the way that it converts is the bottom 2 doors open up, and then the counter folds up to the right, and then you just remove the toilet from the base and set it off to the side. For the toilet, nothing has to be disconnected because it is a Lavo dry flush toilet. It's the version that has the battery inside, so it's basically all self-contained. Nothing has to be unplugged. You can literally put it wherever you want, so I really like that concept. To convert the top, what you do is open the top lid. There's 2 small shelf brackets that get pulled out, and then the bottom of that cabinet hinges down. And then all you have to do is take the curtain and hook it to the small hooks around the door and tuck the curtain into the shower basin, and basically you are ready to shower. As you can see, having the curtain actually come out on the door portion of the shower actually gives you a lot more elbow room, kind of at the chest length, so you actually feel like you have a little more space in there, because it is a small shower. It's approximately 2 by 2, but it's wider than that. It's about 3 feet wide at the top where the curtain extends outward. To convert the shower back, you basically just stuff the curtain up in the top cabinet, close the bottom of that cabinet and put the 2 shelf pins in, close the lid, and then set down the countertop and close the doors. It's as easy as that. Moving to the left, we have a tall cabinet here. You'll see I have a clothing rod for hanging storage and then a shelf up above for miscellaneous items. And that shelf up above can actually be removed very easily if you want the full height of that cabinet to store, say, a snowboard or fishing poles or other tall items that you may have. Moving down to the bottom, you'll notice I have a small diagonal step to help get up into the bed because the bed is fairly high up. And there also is some storage in that step. You can lift it up to the side and you can actually access the water pump, shut off, the drain for the water tank, and a little bit of the plumbing situation. To the left of that is a small drawer for the trash can. So basically the drawer is just a frame, and then I have a plastic trash can that sits in there, and it comes out easily if you want it a little bit closer to the kitchen area while you're making food. Starting with the kitchen area, first we'll talk about the water in the sink situation. So back to the water tank, it is a 42-gallon freshwater tank, and then the gray water tank is 16 gallons, and that is mounted underneath the van, and both the shower and the sink flow to that tank. That tank can actually be released easily by flipping this switch in the kitchen area, and it will just drain automatically. Another cool feature about this sink is it actually has a light in there, and when you turn it on, it will turn blue for cold, and then when it gets hot, it will turn to red. I'm not quite sure how this thing works. There's no batteries involved or anything, and it somehow can sense the temperature, and it's pretty cool. Underneath the sink, I have a small tilt-out cabinet for sponges and wash rags, whatever you need. And then below there are two drawers and then a door for some storage underneath that. Moving to the right is my refrigerator. So this time around I went with the Dometic CFX 75, which is a dual zone, so I can have a refrigerator and a freezer at the same time. The design I used for the refrigerator I haven't quite seen before, but I actually integrated it with the counter. The top of the counter is actually attached to the refrigerator, so you open up the top of the counter. So there are definitely pros and cons to this design for the refrigerator. A few of the pros are you don't have a large pull out that kind of gets in the way every time you need to access it. You don't have to bend down to get in the refrigerator. Some of the cons are top of the refrigerator is a lot of the counter space. So if you're making dinner or something and you need to access the refrigerator, you may have to shift what you're doing and working on over to one side or the other to access. I haven't really felt like that was much of a problem for me because I would just try and get everything out, and if I did need to get something else, it wasn't too hard just to shift stuff over a little bit or put it over on the other counter on the other side of the van and get something else out. Underneath the refrigerator is a giant drawer. I also did a double drawer system in here, so that way you can store larger items on the bottom and then smaller items on the top. Moving to the right of that, you'll see I have a full oven and cooktop. This is a propane powered unit, and I originally was going to go with the Dometic version of this, but I saw this one on Rec Pro's website and I really liked the look of it and the design of it a lot more than Dometic's, and it was actually about $50 cheaper, so I decided to go with this one. Below the oven is a door and a drawer for storage, and then to the right of that is another door and drawer for storage. The countertop, I was actually able to use some scraps from the last van that I made and another project that I did this summer, which were both walnut, so I kind of pieced it together out of those scraps, and that way I was able to get basically a free walnut countertop. The backsplash, I absolutely loved how it turned out. I actually saw this design, something similar to this at Menards, and I really liked the color scheme, and I felt like it would kind of fit with the interior look that I was kind of going for the van. On the rear of the backsplash, I have two switches. One controls the lights on the ceiling, and then one controls the lights underneath the cabinets. And then I have a switch for the inverter, an outlet, and another 12-volt charging port. In the upper cabinets, it's basically just a bunch of storage. I did install a cabinet light switch on each of these cabinets, so every time you open an upper cabinet, the lights automatically turn on. Alright, time to move to the rear of the van. So in this van, I decided to do a dinette convertible layout. So basically you can seat 4 people around a convertible table comfortably. And the way that works is basically you just move the 2 center cushions and put them on the back to form a backrest, and then the center of the bed lifts up in 2 pieces, and then there are 2 poles that you insert into little brackets on the floor and then attach to the bottom of the table. There are 2 draw hasp latches that make the table kind of firm up and be nice and sturdy. Under both seating areas there is a hatch to access the bottom of those areas. So on the driver's side of the van there's basically a large box where you can store a bunch of things, and then the bottom of that cabinet also opens up and you can access the plumbing and heating system down in that hole. And then to the left of that is the propane storage. So there's a second latch that lifts up there, and that box is sealed and vented, and the vent goes down to the bottom of the van. That way if there's any off-gassing from the propane tank, it will escape through the bottom and not into the van. On the passenger side, the hatch lifts up and I can have access to my bike. I can actually pull my bike out through that direction if I need to, and I just have a few other access points for my longboard and also my motorcycle helmets. As far as cabinets in the rear, I have a good amount of cabinets for clothing storage or whatever you want. I have some camping gear and some of my clothes in these cabinets back here. Alright, moving outside to the garage area. So most of the vans I've seen either have a dinette or they have bike storage. One or the other typically. I know a few people that have done both, but it gets to be hard to do both because the storage is very limited when you do a dinette. But I really wanted to make room for at least 1 bike, and ideally 2. So I really have it set up for just 1 bike right now, but I think with a few modifications, 2 bikes could be stored underneath the bed. On the right side, you'll notice my electrical system. So this system is actually fairly similar to the system that I did for van number 2. I really liked how that turned out, and I thought I would just kind of replicate it again for this system. I have a 2000 watt pure sine wave Renogy inverter, and I have 200 amp hours of lithium batteries, and they are Renogy's self-heating batteries. So when it drops below a certain temperature and you're getting at least a little bit of charge, they'll be able to self-heat themselves in cooler temperatures. For the bicycle, I decided to do a pull-out to make it a little bit easier to get it in and out of the van. So this is on 48-inch drawer slides, and it pulls out nice and far to make it very easy to get off of the slider. To the left of the bike is another large drawer for storage. I have some tools stored in here and just miscellaneous items. To the left of that, I just have a hook where I hang my fresh water fill hose. And then down below, it might be hard to see in the video, but you can kind of see my diesel heater, my hot water heater, and then some plumbing back in there as well. And you'll notice I did do a separate diesel tank for the diesel heater because the van is actually gas, and unfortunately I can't tap into that for my diesel heater. So I haven't had any problems having the diesel in the van as far as fumes or spilling or anything goes. Those containers that the heaters come with are pretty decent even if you have to keep them inside. I also installed some garage lights under here to help be able to see when it's dark out. So you'll see on the back left door I have a ladder to access the roof, and that's because I have a nice roof rack up there. So on the roof you'll see I have 2 solar panels. They are both 210 watts each for a total of 420 watts of solar. And then I decided to go with dual fans for this van. It really just helps with, especially having the dinette, when you have, more than 2 people sitting back there, it can get a little bit stuffy. So I thought it'd be really nice to have a way to get the air out right back there. And then the deck boards that I used are actually composite, so we don't have to worry about them rotting or just keeping them stained over time. A little more expensive, but I felt like they really were just good for this purpose. The frame of the roof rack is made out of aluminum. I saw a design similar to this on YouTube, and it's something that I'm able to make myself. I was able to find the aluminum channel, and then it's basically all held together with rivets and little brackets that I was able to cut. So it's fairly light, it's fairly low profile. I'm just really happy with how this rack turned out. As far as the rest of the exterior of the van, I haven't done a whole lot other than I have the KO2 all-terrain tires again, which I love. And the 2 windows that you see on the side, I did add both of them. The larger window on the driver's side is a CR Lawrence all-glass look crank-out style window. I really like the window. It feels really good quality, and since it cranks out on the bottom, I'm able to have it open if it's raining out. And then the smaller window on the kitchen side was a cheaper window, and it just basically slides to the right. So one of the last features to show you is the outdoor kitchen feature, which I absolutely love how it turned out. I think it's really cool. So you'll see I did a laundry sink in the little outdoor niche, and this sink has threads on it, so I can actually use this as a spigot. Basically, I can connect my garden hose up to it and wash my mountain bike, my dirt bike, whatever I need to from that. And also I can get hot water from that as well, which will be nice for cleaning things. I also have an outlet in that little niche and a propane inlet, which is connected into my propane system. That way, if you ever have a grill that you want to plug in to the system in the van, you can do that easily through that access point. And then I also added a little light on the upper side of the niche. The last feature I'll show you is the removable outdoor table. So the outdoor table is actually the front portion of the rear dinette. So they both have a metal bracket on them, and it basically just leans right on the metal bracket, and you have a little outdoor space to set things. This optional table can actually be used inside the van on the end of the countertop to form a little table for the passenger seat when it's swiveled around. Alright, and lastly, you may have noticed already, but I think it was really cool that I was able to bring over the signature board from my first van. So if you've met me on the road, maybe you've seen this before, maybe you've got your name on it, but it's a really fun way just for people to leave a note, or their number, or their Instagram, or a funny saying, or something like that. So it's nice to have the same style van. Basically, the door is exactly the same, so I was able to unscrew it and screw it onto the new van to bring those memories with and add more. So I hope you enjoyed this van tour, and if you are building a van, I hope you got some ideas for your build, and if you're not a van builder, I just hope you think it's cool and like to hear about my weird lifestyle that I live. So anyways, some of you might be wondering what I'm doing in Florida this winter. Well, you have to stay tuned. I'll make another video about that. Thanks for watching.